And so when I die, I've set it up. My will is set up.
Weeks before he died, Oliver Tree sat down for an interview dressed as Shrek and casually explained exactly what should happen to his money after he was gone. Nobody thought anything of it at the time.
I thought I died. I thought I overdosed. It's like a rebirth, you know? And I'm literally on the ground, and I've convinced myself that essentially the way I would explain it is that my brain has been destroyed, but my body's still going.
It was just Oliver being Oliver. Then the unthinkable happened.
6 people who died.
6 people found dead.
6 people are dead.
That 6 people have died after 2 helicopters collided mid-air in Brazil. Among the victims is a popular singer, Oliver Tree.
And that one conversation suddenly became one of the most talked about interviews in music. This is the real story behind Oliver Tree's final wishes and why his own family will not see a single dollar of it. The interview that predicted everything. On April 24th, just 2 months before his death, Oliver Tree appeared on the Zach Sang Show for an interview that would later feel almost impossible to watch without chills. True to his chaotic public persona, he showed up dressed head to toe as Shrek, his skin painted green, sporting his signature half mullet, half bowl cut hairstyle underneath the costume. Weeks before he died, Oliver Tree sat down for an interview dressed as Shrek and casually explained exactly what should happen to his money after he was gone.
And so when I die, I've set it up. My will is set up that when I pass, my family, no one's gonna get a penny.
Nobody thought anything of it at the time. It was just Oliver being Oliver. Then the unthinkable happened, and that one conversation suddenly became one of the most talked about interviews in music. This is the real story behind Oliver Tree's final wishes and why his own family will not see a single dollar of it. Sang noted that it had been 4 years since Tree's last appearance on the show and joked that things had somehow gone downhill for him since then, despite a string of hit songs in between. When Sang pointed out that Tree had been treating every album like it might be his last one for years, Tree pushed back immediately, insisting it was not just a bit, telling him plainly that it was not some kind of shtick. That response opened the door to a much deeper conversation than anyone watching probably expected. Tree explained that he genuinely did not believe the wealth generated from his music actually belonged to him personally, a philosophy that shaped everything he was about to reveal next. He spoke with total ease about his own mortality, at one point noting that historically speaking, an artist's work tends to become more valuable after they pass away, and that his own music would likely be worth more once he was gone than it currently was while he was alive. He even joked in his usual blunt style that people would finally start appreciating what he called his own ridiculous videos and songs.
I just got word that my album is no longer coming out. Love You Madly, Hate You Badly is officially canceled, and I'm parting ways with Atlantic Records. I have no marketing budgets for music videos, no digital ad spend.
Once he was no longer around to make more of them. Anyone who has followed Oliver Tree's career for any length of time knows that blending absurd comedy with unexpectedly sincere honesty was always his signature move, whether he was performing in a full bodysuit, staging an elaborate fake retirement, or holding a mock funeral for one of his own alter egos years earlier. That same blend showed up again in this interview, except this time, the subject matter was not a bit at all. It was real legal planning delivered with a straight face underneath a Shrek costume, which somehow made the whole thing land even harder once people went back and rewatched it after he was gone. At the time the interview aired, Tree was deep into promoting his 4th studio album, Love You Madly, Hate You Badly, and preparing for a world tour that would eventually take him to more than 30 countries, a schedule that made his calm, almost reflective tone about his own mortality feel even more out of place against everything else happening in his career at that exact moment. The will that shocked everyone. What Tree revealed next is the part of the interview that spread the fastest once news of his death broke. He stated plainly that when he passed away, his family would not receive a single penny from his estate, adding that even a wife or children, had he had them, would not see any of that money either. He clarified that he did still intend to cover his children's college education if he ever had kids, making sure they would be taken care of, but he was firm that they would never grow up relying on what he called a silver spoon funded entirely by his career earnings. He even acknowledged that his own upbringing had been comfortable thanks to work his father had done decades earlier, which seemed to inform why he felt so strongly that his own children should build their own path rather than simply inherit his. Instead of leaving his fortune to family, Tree explained that he had already set up a foundation called Dr. Oliver Tree's Art Grants for Baby Geniuses, designed to funnel his earnings directly back into supporting other artists after he was gone. He laid out surprisingly specific rules for how that money could actually be used. Grant recipients would not be allowed to spend the funds on equipment purchases or on education and schooling of any kind. Instead, the money could only go toward physically producing art, covering things like hiring people to help create work or renting the actual gear and equipment needed to make something real. He was clear that he respected education deeply and did not think teachers were unimportant. He simply wanted this particular pool of money reserved specifically for the physical act of making art rather than anything else. He also went out of his way to explain why he drew that line so firmly. In his own words, he wanted the money spent on the actual act of creation itself, not on the kind of overhead costs that established institutions already existed to cover. It was a distinction that reflected how Tree approached his own career too, someone who built his entire identity around physically making things, whether that meant directing his own bizarre music videos, building elaborate stage props by hand, or producing entire albums independently rather than leaning on major label machinery to do it for him. Tree also explained exactly who would be responsible for deciding where that money went each year, rather than leaving those decisions to lawyers or executors with no real connection to his work. He said a committee made up of collaborators he had actually made music, film, or art with during his lifetime would vote annually on which artists received support. He even said he hoped to get the entire system up and running while he was still alive, rather than leaving it as an abstract plan buried inside legal paperwork. And he expressed hope that the foundation could continue supporting new artists for as long as 100 years into the future. His family, honoring his final wish. 1 week after Oliver Tree died in the helicopter crash that claimed his life alongside 5 others in Rio de Janeiro, his family confirmed they intended to carry out exactly what he had described in that interview. In a statement posted to his Instagram, his family announced that his body had been returned home to California, writing that Oliver was finally somewhere he could rest. They confirmed the foundation Tree had described weeks earlier, calling it Dr. Oliver Tree's extremely epic grant for baby geniuses, and stated it was coming soon exactly as he had planned it. The family made clear that fulfilling this specific wish mattered deeply to them, writing that they intended to make sure his vision came to life so that more joy, love, and art could keep spreading into the world because of him. They closed their statement expressing how proud Tree would be of every supporter, friend, and family member standing behind him, and asked for peace to be with him going forward. That choice of words, focusing on joy and art rather than grief alone, mirrored the same spirit Tree had built his entire career around, and it suggested his family understood exactly what he would have wanted people to take away from his passing. Tree's mother, Christine Begin Nickel, also shared her own heartbreaking tribute publicly, saying her son had made the world a better place during his time in it. Reading those words alongside the interview he gave just weeks earlier, it becomes clear that Tree was not simply talking about death in the abstract that day on Zach Sang's show. He was quietly preparing the people around him for exactly this moment, long before anyone else realized that was what he was doing. For a family suddenly forced to grieve in public while the entire internet dissected every detail of his final months, having his own words already laid out so clearly seemed to offer at least some sense of direction during an otherwise devastating time. What makes this story resonate the way it has is not just the timing of the interview itself, it is how deliberately Tree had already thought through what his legacy should actually look like. Rather than leaving that decision to chance or to a legal team assembling a will after the fact, he used his own platform to explain it directly to fans months in advance, in his own voice, dressed as Shrek, laughing through most of it. That contrast between the absurdity of the moment and the seriousness of what he was actually saying is exactly why this interview has stuck with so many people since his passing, resurfacing again and again as fans continue processing the loss of an artist who somehow managed to plan for his own ending while still fully living inside the chaos that made him famous in the first place. It is a strange kind of comfort knowing that even in his own unpredictable way, Oliver Tree made sure his final chapter would still be creating opportunities for other artists long after he was gone. CTA, ending. So after hearing exactly what Oliver Tree wanted his legacy to look like, does knowing this change how you see that final interview, or does it make his loss even harder to sit with? It is rare for anyone to lay out their own legacy this clearly, let alone an artist as chaotic and unpredictable as Oliver Tree, and that contradiction is part of what makes this story impossible to look away from. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If this video moved you, subscribe for more stories just like this one, and I will see you in the next video.